Lacs is a community of around 200 people, I believe. You can see it's very rural. That part of our community is very important here. Our main street is quiet, but we have a post office, which we're happy about. So it's a quiet town. It's caring, it's very involved and interested in the school. So we're gonna watch and see what happens to measure those changes. This is something that I've been working on, including more and more in my classroom. So it's not how I've always taught, but I just felt like I was not meeting the needs of my students, doing mostly everything the same. Every year I tried a little bit more of offering students more choices in how I feel that it's really important to give students time to grapple with the information. So I don't think that students remember or incorporate what they're learning if we just go through the notes and take a test and move on. I just don't think that that's enough. And so I've always provided ways for them to grapple with that information, some sort of a project or some sort of an activity, a lab, something where they can work with it. As my classes started to change, and it wasn't only pre-med kids who were coming and taking anatomy anymore, I just thought, what I'm doing isn't meaningful to all my students, and I'm asking them to sit in my classroom and do stuff that they really don't care about. As much, I just felt that it was my obligation to figure out a way to work towards meeting their needs as much as I could. In addition to kind of everybody getting the same basic information on each chapter, we're going to try and always dig into something that's a little bit more interesting and pertinent to you, interesting to you right now, and then also maybe that can be useful to you in your career. I want you to have some time to find some part of this that is going to be useful to you. And so want to have a little bit of conversation about what are your career plans and also just what's interesting to you. And can you see, I just came up with a few examples of dig-in type project. What are you thinking about?
Well, teaching, education.
Okay.
Like
and what area? Are you going to be a biology teacher?
Probably not.
Okay. So what are you thinking?
Maybe history, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you're thinking about teaching history, then
Probably don't know a lot about anatomy.
if you had to spend about 3 days just digging into something, do any of these seem like they would either be useful or really interesting to you?
I think making models helps a lot of kids learn.
Okay.
Because when they get to just talk about stuff like hands-on and make stuff, it makes them just remember it better. It helps for me anyways.
Okay. You are thinking about a medical career, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And tell me about that.
Pediatric oncology. So it's a lot of cancer in kids, and the most common type is leukemia.
And so are you wanting to do something that's connected to that in this class? All right.
I think so.
So if you would want to focus on that and how it fits, how it is an example of connective tissue and what are the types, then you can kind of figure out, okay, this is how theirs work
And I think
normally.
if I figure out how blood cells work and leukemia, then it would make it easier to do the lymph nodes, and then eventually say you get pancreatic cancer and how that can affect those cells too, because it most likely affects all cells. So if you figure out how that works, it should make the other ones kind of easier.
I love how you're thinking of the connections, of that it's not just this one thing, it's connected to the whole body. So I think that, if you can bear to kind of just focus in on blood to start with, and then I think that you can just keep, until you get sick of it, you can just keep figuring out how can this topic affect other. And
it's something that I don't think I'll ever get sick of, because there's so many different things to look at and see how it can affect it all.
For sure. In the last couple of years, I've become much more intentional about really trying to understand more about my students' plans post-high school. And I just realized that I was always teaching from the perspective of college preparation, which is definitely important. But I realized that not everybody has that career path, or maybe their career path doesn't really need biology, but they're still in my class. And so I want them to figure out and to identify why that's important, what they can learn that's important to them. And so that's one reason that I really try and learn more about what are your plans? Where are you thinking about going to school? What are you thinking about doing if you're not going to go to school? And then to try and figure out ways that we can work together to make that learning meaningful, but also to help them realize there's options are still open to them. So there's not like they're tracked for this plan, but to get them thinking about it and to get me to think about really what and why am I teaching, that it's not, I just can't always be teaching one track, one thing. My hope is that as they move along, they'll realize that this information that they're spending their time here working on is gonna go with them, and there's value to that.